The president has said, and you have tweeted, that allegations of wrongdoing based on files pulled from Hunter Biden's laptop are Russian disinformation. There is a new book by a Politico reporter that finds some of the files on there are genuine. Is the White House still going with Russian disinformation?
I think it's broadly known and widely known, Peter, that there was a broad range of Russian disinformation back in 2020.
Okay.
Shortly after President Biden's virtual meeting with the Chinese president, the first son's attorney said that he has finally divested from a Chinese investment fund controlled by state-owned entities. I was hoping you could commit to basic transparency about that transaction, including the name of the buyer, the dollar amount, and the timing. And the second question is, my colleague Miranda Devine has a new book out called The Laptop from Hell, and I was hoping that you could confirm that the laptop is indeed authentic and not Russian disinformation, as you seemed to suggest on Twitter last year.
Well, on the first, the president's son is not an employee of the federal government, so I'd point you to his representatives. And as it relates to the book, I have neither had the time nor interest in exploring or reading the book. Go ahead, Tina.
First son's attorney
go ahead, Tina.
Give any
I think I answered your question. Go ahead. You can go to the representative of the person who's not an employee of the federal government. Go ahead, Tina. I think we have to move on.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about Jen Psaki, the Democrat Party propagandist for MSCCP, okay, because she is accusing Caroline Leavitt of being a propagandist while claiming that she has never peddled propaganda like Caroline Leavitt, the current press secretary for the Trump administration, except Jen Psaki was the same individual who called the Hunter Biden laptop Russian disinformation. And when confronted on her false claim, she never retracted the claim, but Caroline Leavitt, according to Jen Psaki, is a propagandist, and she's not.
What do you make of Caroline? Like, do you know her? Have you ever talked?
No, I don't know her. I think if the totality of the job, and it's part of the job, that's an important part of the job, was somebody who was good on television, which she is, who could command the room, which she can. And there are a lot of press secretaries, Democrats and Republicans, who can't do that and can be eaten alive by that room. If the totality of it was that, and just speaking what was on the mind of your boss, then yeah, she should get good marks for that. That's not the totality of the job.
What's the other part?
The other part of the job is speaking honestly and candidly about the issues that are happening in the country and providing actual useful information to people. And what she's doing is she is just projecting the view of Donald Trump. That's part of it. It's not the only part. And I also think that, she's a person who goes out there on a regular basis and projects propaganda points, right? What I would consider propaganda points. I know the right wing says that about me, but that is just not the same, guys.
So what's the difference?
The difference is she is projecting things like, no, we didn't illegally deport anyone. You didn't? The courts just said you did, She is projecting, Elon Musk is accomplishing his goal. He is? Well, he is.
But wait a second. You had your share of underperforming normal stuff, underperforming cabinet members say, and somebody says, is so-and-so doing a good job? You never went up and said, no, like he's kind of screwing it up.
Ben, I don't watch her briefing, honestly. I see clips of it, but I don't think any human being who's being objective would say that I did the same thing that she is doing.
No, I agree.
So I think that, and I don't think I need to list examples of that. I think that's pretty apparent.
And if I may, you asked about Hunter Biden's laptop. You also, in October 2020, dismissed it as Russian disinformation. Do you stand by that assessment?
Again, I'd point you to the Department of Justice and Hunter Biden's representatives. I'm a spokesperson for the United States. He doesn't work for the United States.
Yeah, so according to Jen Psaki, she's not a propagandist, right? A absolutely laughable statement, because she's such a propagandist that she gets upset and she cries danger when confronted on the fact that she participated in one of the biggest pieces of propaganda for the Democrats that we've seen over the last 4 years, which was the cover-up of Joe Biden's mental deterioration, okay? Jen Psaki serving as press secretary for the first 2 years of Biden's administration, she definitely saw signs of cognitive decline, right? There's no doubt in my mind, okay? But in her mind, it is dangerous to ask about this, right? It is dangerous to call the liberal media covering up Biden's mental decline what it is, which is a cover-up, which triggered her quite a bit. Take a look.
You mentioned how there was a moment in between the debate between Biden and Trump, and when Biden dropped out, in which you said that Biden probably didn't have a path forward, and that was kind of a difficult thing for you to kind of do, as obviously someone who had defended him and his administration and been a very visible face within his administration. I mean, I'm curious what that moment was like for you and what the reaction was from your colleagues, many of whom are still in the White House or, felt that Biden shouldn't drop out.
Well, we can roll the tape, but I don't think I said it was difficult to do. I just think I acknowledged that there was a reaction from people who were strong Biden supporters online.
Wait, sorry, that wasn't difficult to do.
Well, I don't think that's what I stated. I don't think I've said that. I wouldn't describe it that way. I mean, I think when it really started with the debate and watching the debate. And watching the debate. I remember thinking halfway through, and I think I said anyone watching would have thought this, said to my colleagues, because I was about to go do hours of television afterwards, like, this is a fucking disaster, right? Which it was, of course. And then afterwards, we all went on television, and I don't remember exactly how I phrased it, but I think I said what I had seen, right? Which was that. I didn't say fucking, because you can't say that on MSNBC, but some version of that. I didn't know what was going to happen from there. I don't think anybody exactly did. It just became clear. And what I started saying on television was, I'm talking to a lot of Democrats who are saying, it's not for me to determine if he has a path forward, that there is not a path forward, right? That they don't see a path forward. And that was more what I tried to stay centered in every day, was who I was actually, I've been in this town. I've worked in Democratic politics for a long time. What people privately were telling me.
Did the White House cover this up? Did the media cover this up? Like, what? Just sort of in retrospect, and you weren't in the White House in those later moments, but how do you read this? I mean, something I feel I have complicated feelings about, but I'm curious what you think.
I mean, I obviously do too. I think cover up is such a loaded phrase. But I also, to your point, I left in May of 2022, just for the facts here. And I have seen Biden once since then, when I took my daughter to the holiday party this last December after he had lost. And so I hadn't seen him in person during that period of time. I never saw that person, not a single time. And I was in the Oval Office every day that was on that debate stage. I'm not a doctor. Aging happens quite quickly. Were things that people saw during that period of time that were similar to that, or would have been in a category of that? I don't know, possibly, right? And all these books are going to tell us.
But let's sort of take it in two pieces. First, like your old colleagues, and you talk to these folks, I talk to these folks. Like, do you think that were they actively covering it up? Were they sort of in denial, or was that just a bad debate? Like, what is your read on that?
Well, this is what I mean about cover up is a very loaded term, I think.
Well, it means you knew that it was really bad and you're pretending otherwise versus you're deluding yourself, which I think is what people do a lot.
Well, I understand, but I still think it's like cover up is often like a crime, right? We're talking when people use that term.
They say it's worse than the crime.
People use that term as they relate to Watergate or the covering up of not sharing public information about a war.
Yeah, and I'm not accusing anybody of a crime.
I understand, but other people have used that term, and I think it's a bit of a dangerous term. I don't know. I have not talked to them, any of the people in these books, about this particular question. I think that at their root, a lot of the people who are mentioned are good human beings. And so I like to think that, no, they would not be a part of an active, let's hide from the public what we see happening privately. And I don't know the facts of what was happening privately.
Right, so you seen that, you heard that. Okay, Jen Psaki thinks that calling the media's failure to tell the truth about Joe Biden a cover-up is dangerous. Now, why does she think that it is dangerous? Well, it is dangerous, according to her, because it makes the Democrat Party look bad. It makes her look bad. As a propagandist for the Democrat Party on MSCCP, she has to have some credibility, right? That is, I guess, a part of what you need to do the job, except honestly, I'm not even sure if that's a requirement at MSNBC, because I don't think that any of their anchors have any credibility, but who knows? Maybe they have credibility with some people, right? With some audience out there of lunatics. But regardless, when you talk about the deterioration of Joe Biden's mental state while he was in office, there's absolutely no way that Jen Psaki did not see this happening as press secretary, even when she was there for the first 2 years, right? Because her excuse is that, well, I left, right? I left halfway through, and I didn't talk to him. I didn't see him again until after the election. So I didn't know. But it's like, Jen, you used to work there. Corinne's Jean-Pierre worked under you. Corinne's Jean-Pierre was interacting with the president every day, and you never had any conversations about Joe Biden's mental state or his deterioration. You had no conversations whatsoever. You didn't notice that Joe Biden was a little slow at all. You didn't notice that, right? You didn't notice that he wasn't moving at the speed that he used to move at. You didn't notice that, Jen? If you did not notice that, then that means that your judgment is incredibly bad, right? If your judgment is that bad, then I'm not sure if you should be a TV anchor, right? Who are you to comment on politics when your judgment is so bad that you didn't notice what everybody noticed about Joe Biden, even when he was running back in a Democrat primary, right? Back in 2019. In 2020, everybody noticed that Biden was losing his mind, right? People who were paying attention noticed, maybe not the Democrat Party, I don't know, right? But I'm just saying, people who actually were paying attention knew about this as early as 2019. So Jen Psaki claiming that, well, I was on there for a couple years, right, and I didn't see him again until after the election is nonsense. She's well connected to the Biden administration, so she definitely knew. I mean, she was there personally, and on top of that, as a propagandist for MSNBC on her show, when confronted with the Robert Hur report, the DOJ report that basically revealed that, yeah, Biden is so cognitively impaired, he can't even stand trial without it being elder abuse, right? She brought on Biden's personal attorney to spin the report into propaganda for the DNC audience that, hey, no, you don't understand. It's not that Biden is cognitively declining and that he couldn't understand the questions and he didn't understand what was going on, right? It's not that. No. The DOJ, they asked bad questions, right? And on top of that, Biden's so busy. He was very busy that day because Biden is just moving around everywhere. He's, one of these guys that just never stops working. And because the DOJ dared to question Biden's mental fitness in the report, they're the ones that actually should be investigated, not Joe Biden for taking classified documents and sharing national security secrets in exchange for a book deal to make millions of dollars.
One of the points that you've made and other legal minds have said about this report is that it kind of goes, of course, outside of the scope of norms. His reporting and who he talked to went outside of what would be normal, even for a special counsel. Do you think that should be investigated or looked into? Because the judicial system, the judiciary is kind of in not a positive view necessarily by the American public at this point.
Well, in the role that I have, all I can do is point it out, which is you had an investigation that ran for 15 months, which could have been concluded in just a few months. There was never any question that the president had not engaged in criminal wrongdoing. He was the self-reporting party here. He had turned the documents over upon discovery, cooperated in every respect. Beyond the interview, beyond the turning over the documents, at every turn, the president cooperated with this investigation, and he did so in answering the questions that were put to him in the interview.
You also said yesterday, which stuck out to me, I underlined it, that the special counsel was asking bad questions. I mean, the thing is with these reports, you only see one side. Tell me a little bit more about that. Why were they bad or imprecise, I guess?
I wasn't suggesting that every single question was bad. I was simply pointing out that the special counsel had indicated that somehow the president wasn't able to answer questions directly or clearly. And I was simply suggesting, again, based on what I clearly recall, and I think all of us in the room recall, that the president was not only answering questions, he was pointing out flaws in lines of questioning that were put to him by the special counsel. On a couple of occasions, he noted that there was a problem with the question. I think it became immediately clear to everyone in the room there was a problem with the question. I didn't deduce from that there was something wrong with the special counsel's mental acuity. I just assumed that in those instances, he had framed his questions poorly. But what I was trying to emphasize there was that the president was engaged with this interview. He was able to provide his best recollection. And on a couple of occasions, he pointed out that there were problems with the questions put to him that I think everybody in the room recognized he correctly identified.
As someone who has been on the receiving end of the president unraveling your line of questioning, I have been. I know you have been. I related a little in that moment. I did want to ask you a little bit about that day, because I think this is sometimes lost in the reporting. I mean, it was the day after the 2 days after the October 7th attack. And obviously, the country saw how much that impacted the president. I know from working for him that he often is juggling many things at the same time, making calls with foreign leaders, getting updates. Was that part of the day as well? Did he have to take breaks? Did he come from a 2-hour Situation Room meeting? I mean, what else was happening that day?
I can say this. We kept the appointment. A decision was made. And of course, this is ultimately the president's decision for any number of reasons that he would keep the agreed date for the interview, which was going to span 2 days and run 5 hours. It went somewhat over 5 hours. But when he arrived in the room to meet counsel before proceeding downstairs to the interview, he was coming off of phone calls of obviously urgent importance on these international events. That I knew.
Yeah. So I want you guys to understand. That is Jen Psaki, who claims to not be a propagandist, running Soviet-level propaganda on behalf of the Biden administration, right? She was not skeptical at all of Biden and his mental condition, even after the fact that the DOJ, Robert Hur, concluded that, you know, this guy Biden, he's not cognitively fit enough to stand trial. But no. It's not Biden who's the problem. No, it actually was the DOJ, right? The DOJ is the problem. They were asking bad questions. That's why Biden sounded incoherent, right? That's why he couldn't answer the questions, because the questions were bad. They were imprecise, right? And also on top of that, Biden's just so busy, right? Again, for the president, who seems to have spent a vast majority of his time not actually really running the country, but on a beach somewhere in Delaware. Yeah, that guy, okay, he is just extremely busy, okay? He's on phone calls with foreign leaders, having these very complex conversations. He's doing long flights, right? All of these things are happening around the time of this interview, and that's why he was incoherent, right? And these people, they get so shocked and they get offended when people come out here and call them out for the obvious, which is that they covered up Biden's mental decline. They covered up. Anytime there was serious allegations, serious reasons to believe that Joe Biden is not mentally fit for office, they covered it up. They went out of their way to dismiss it as right-wing propaganda, right? It's a conspiracy theory, right? Cheap fakes. This is what they did. But Jen Psaki wants to get upset. She wants to get triggered because people are using the word cover up when that's clearly and obviously what you did. You covered it up. And the fact that you keep denying that you covered it up just makes it so you're less credible, right? And that's what I don't really understand about these people, because it's like, well, you're already not credible because you covered up. You become less credible when you deny that you covered up, right? Because we know that you're lying. But apparently the people that watch her show, and I'm not sure who watches her show, they don't care about being lied to, right? I mean, clearly she's lying to her audience. She lied about basically everything when it comes to the Biden administration. But for whatever reason, these people are too stupid to understand that continuing to lie about this either suggests that, again, you are a liar and you refuse to admit that you knew and that this was a cover-up, or your judgment is so bad that you didn't notice the obvious, what everybody saw. And if that's the case, then you should not be doing the job that Jen Psaki is doing right now, because clearly her judgment and her inside information, right, inside with Jen Psaki, clearly is no better than the average American on the street. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.